Good morning. When one looks at the Mathews Nedumpara incident, it is not just one case, it's a bunch of cases where the judiciary has given a particular kind of response. When one looks at this entire incident, several thoughts come to mind. One thought is that it has been extremely divisive. It divides the legal community. On the one hand, it can be argued that Mathews was being divisive because he was seeking reliefs against Fali Nariman in Delhi High Court. It was not reliefs against Fali Nariman. He was seeking directions from the court that Fali Nariman should not appear before Supreme Court, and this is what he sought before Delhi High Court. That was one writ petition. In the second writ petition, that's before Supreme Court, he sought directions that senior advocates, senior counsels should not be designated by judges. Rather, they should be designated by a process of seniority. Anybody who attains seniority by a practice of 30 years or 35 years, a certain cutoff line, should be designated as a senior, not at the pleasure of the judges, not at the discretion of the judges, but by a very verifiable criterion, that is seniority at the bar. Both of these were dismissed, summarily dismissed, without too much application of mind. One wonders what was the application of mind, because the judgments have not really entered into, especially the Supreme Court judgment has not entered into this, the ratio of the writ petition in a very firm way. Rather, it has entered into what one would call ad hominem attack on Mathews Nedumpara, the counsel who was representing the cause. So it has been very divisive. It has divided, it shows the fault lines, it reveals the fault lines between the rank and file, the ordinary advocates, the foot soldiers of the judiciary, if one may use that word, and the senior counsels, the designated senior counsels, the generals, the front, how do we put it? They're not front runners, but they take up these huge cases and they get paid pots of money, unimaginable amounts of money. One hesitates to use the word generals for them, but let us say eminent jurists. So, this case has clearly cast a line of division between ordinary lawyers and eminent jurists. And unfortunately, very unfortunately, Fali Nariman falls on one side of the divide. Now, I was having this discussion last night on such things with Arvind Kamath, who is an advocate practicing in Bangalore. And something he said, the narration, he was narrating how things had unfolded. One of these things, sets off a huge spark in my mind. The way it unfolded is that there was the hearing at Supreme Court in the morning. I'm talking about, I think, 2 days ago. when when the sentencing of Mathews Nedumpara happened. The conviction had already happened in the writ petition itself. Without a trial, without a show cause notice, he was sentenced. He was convicted of contempt. Now, 2 days ago, when this sentencing hearing happened, in the morning session, Rohinton Nariman said, "Do you know that my daughter is also practicing, but I have forbidden her from practicing in my court, and I think that does not mean that she is forbidden from practicing in Supreme Court, but let's let that rest, whatever that may be." So in the morning there was this conversation, and then Mathews Nedumpara, I think his lawyer had not turned up, so he asked for a recess. And in that period, before this hearing was to resume at 2 p.m., he went to the library. Now, this is what I am told. Okay, this is what I am told of how it transpired. He went to the library, and who else should he find there but Fali Nariman himself, the great man himself. And under the circumstances, I don't think anybody else would have done otherwise. He did what anyone else would have done, which is he approached Mr. Fali Nariman, and I think he begged his forgiveness or pardon. He said, "Listen, it was nothing personal. Whatever I have done is in the line of my duty. But if offense was caused to you, please forgive me." And it seems Fali Nariman more or less brushed him off. He said, "I don't have the time. Please leave me alone. I don't have the time for all this. I don't know. I don't know exactly the wordings. I am not. This is the report that is given to me. So it's not a first person account for me. From me, it's the second person account. So I'm narrating this. It seems he brushed off Mathews. And then we know what happened. Mathews later went back to court, and he was convicted. He was sentenced. It was a 3 months jail sentence, which is suspended as long as no judge accuses Mathews of browbeating him. Now, my conversation with Arvind Kamath went like this. Arvind suddenly mentioned one point. He said, how great it would have been if Mr. Fali Nariman had said, "I forgive you, or I excuse you. These things happen." And he had showed up. Fali Nariman himself had showed up in the court of Rohinton Nariman and said to his son, "Listen, this has gone far enough. There is no need to take this any further. He has apologized to me. I accept his apology. And let's go on with life. We are all one. We are one family. We are all members of the bar. We are the judicial fraternity. Nothing will be achieved by punishing Mathews Nedumpara." And if he had, I'm reasonably sure that if he had done this, Rohinton Nariman would not have convicted, would not have sentenced Mathews Nedumpara. He would not have sentenced him. He stands convicted as it is, but he is let off with, shall we say, maybe a warning, or I don't know. But what a wonderful gesture it would have been on the part of Fali Nariman. Just think about it. Today, by contrast, there is bitterness, there is a sense of seething anger and resentment among the rank and file advocates, the ordinary advocates. I am seeing that on their WhatsApp groups. I am on many of their WhatsApp groups, and I am seeing there's a bitter taste in the mouth. They don't know what to do next. There's a dirty taste in the mouth. Instead, just let us visualize what Fali Nariman could have done. If he had only done this, he had said, no, let's brush this aside. These are minor incidents. I understand, it's okay. And he had walked across this whole. He could have bridged, Fali Nariman could have bridged the divide between ordinary advocates and senior counsels. Fali Nariman could have prevented a rift between the two, or rather, there is a rift, but he could have bridged the divide. Fali Nariman is considered a colossus in judicial circles. He is a colossus. Let's not take that away from him. No matter what he does, no matter what he says, nothing can take that away from him. He is a colossus. He is a giant. But it would have been a move befitting a giant if he had, strode across the divide and showed his magnanimity and said, come on, Matthew, come on. And he had just given him a hug and taken him to the court of his son and said, listen, Matthew and I are friends. We don't have anything. I don't hold anything against him. And your cause of action is over. If I don't consider it contemptuous for him to name me, you can't hold it as contempt against me, against him. Finished. It would be over. It would be over. I am pretty damn sure that if after this Rohinton Nariman still sentenced him, I don't know, that just sounds ridiculous. It doesn't even sound plausible. Wouldn't have happened. Think of the amount of goodwill it would have created. Arvind said something like, he was just the thought made him sentimental. He says, I would have been his slave forever. I don't know if that's the expression he used, but he was like, I would worship him. I would worship Fali Nariman. And I can see where that sentiment is coming from. Everybody would worship Fali Nariman for his magnanimity. Think of the news stories. Now you have these Mathews Nedumpara news stories which have come in so many different forums, of lawyers, as well as it has been flashed in national media. Think what beautiful stories would have appeared if Fali Nariman had done this. Can you imagine the beauty of it? Can you imagine the glory and grandeur of what would have appeared in the papers? It would have been like a movie ending, it would have been cinematic in its grandeur. Fali Nariman forgives and forgets. Think of how much it would have united this the judiciary. Think of how much goodwill would have flowed. It would have been an international story. It would have been a story to be told for generations. People would be telling this story to their children and grandchildren. Don't you think so? Instead, oh God, instead, the story that has emerged is one of mean-mindedness, of a tragic black day in the history of our judiciary. Oh God. Oh God. How the mighty have fallen. How the mighty have fallen. The feeling that one gets at the end of this is, the feeling that one gets at the end of this is the people whom we consider gods, their feet are made of clay. Our gods have clay feet. The people whom we consider as colossus, oh God, they are so trivial, they are so petty-minded. They cannot see the big picture. They are lost in the little picture. And for this reason, this is the trigger. This is the conclusive trigger for judicial reforms. These guys have to be dethroned, and they shall be dethroned by